Arne Slot, the Feyenoord manager, has said that he wants the job. He's spoken to ESPN in the Netherlands saying that negotiations are ongoing between the teams. What are your thoughts, Nick Mendola, initially on this? Because not a name that we would have picked as the first one as the new Liverpool manager to replace Klopp. But when you start to think about it and look at his background, his recent success, kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense. The thing I like the most, and not to jump the momentum of the segment, but Jurgen Klopp's quote, he said, what I like is that if he is the one, he wants the job. And that's what matters to me, because I think about anybody taking over a legendary post, and you better want it. You better want everything that comes with it. And of course, we'll talk about the similarities and the style and all that. But the most important thing, short and sweet, is this is a guy who's a good age profile. He could be there a while. Let's face it, Klopp could have done another 10 years if he didn't get tired out. And this is someone who wants to be there. And I think it's a good calculated risk for Liverpool, rather than falling into the trap of what so many other clubs have done, which is it has to be guy X, although there certainly would be a lack of risk in guy X. So I like it.
This is almost like they're trying to find the next Klopp early before he's had success at a big club. And that's what all the teams are maybe looking for new managers are doing. And just like Nick said, taking a bit of a calculated risk. But I look at his personality and the way he acts in the media and the way he is with the Feyenoord players. It's very, very similar to Klopp, and almost his journey as a player in the Eredivisie and then working his way up through smaller teams in Holland. I mean, nearly won the title with RZ in the season that got cancelled because of COVID. Then he won the title with Feyenoord and the Cup as well. I mean, very likable, funny, kind of relaxed guy. It's almost like they're trying to get the personality right and thinking tactically he kind of fits as well. So maybe this will work.
Yeah, possibly. It does feel like a carbon copy. And if the idea going into a new era is to just continue doing the same thing that the last guy did, that doesn't always seem to work. If you're trying to emulate someone that came before you and you are so closely relatable, if you're so similar to him, at what point do you almost fall into trying to be him rather than kind of forging your own path and doing it your own way? And so I do wonder if maybe a little bit more of a stylistic difference between those, but between the two managers might help a little bit. But I also look at the squad and I think, well, the squad responds to that very well. Clearly, they've done well under Klopp. But a lot of the big figures in the team, Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah, I mean, even Alisson is over 30. I mean, Andy Robertson. There's a lot of players in that team that in the next year or two are going to be probably moved on or moving on themselves. And so there's going to be a lot of transition. I feel like it's possibly a chance to go in a slightly different direction, and they've decided seemingly to not take it.
Joe.
A lot of similarities when the style that he plays, Nick, just to continue that theme, the high pressing and all the rest of it. But he's also a lot more possession-based as well. So kind of reminds me maybe similar to Arsenal, the way that Arteta has taken a lot of the principles of Guardiola, and Slot is a huge Guardiola fan. They talked a lot about him, watching his videos growing up in his coaching career. But just tweaking it and just maybe advancing. And I look at some of the midfielders Liverpool have, like Szoboszlai, McAllister, clearly not high pressing players that can keep the ball. And I just wonder, this is like the evolution of Liverpool in this squad and more the direction they're going to go towards. Still keep that high pressing identity that is part of football today, but just a bit more possession based. But that's my thoughts. Anything else you'll add, Nick?
No, listen, I think the argument for this is hard to take if you're a Liverpool fan because your club is so big. But sometimes clubs generally change their entire, not ethos, but they've changed, and a man changes them. And maybe this is something that we will look back on 20 years now and say, well, this is when Liverpool started playing like this and kept playing like this. And this is their identity for a generation or two. And I'll point to smaller examples, what Brighton has done in replacing Graham Potter and the way they've identified what they needed to do. I know it's a little bit different, but when Pep left because he had the best players in the world, but Tito Villanova and eventually Luis Enrique, this is something that could be, now this is Liverpool. And I would say this, it's going to be hard for someone to one day take the reins from Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, but I think it would be insane not to bring in a possession-based guy who wanted to do some of the similar things. So if I'm a Liverpool fan, my hope is that Liverpool got exciting again under Klopp. Not that they weren't exciting before. And this is how we're going to be now. this is our team. And what Slot brings that is perhaps most intriguing to me is Liverpool can, again, despite how much they spend, hide under the mask of we're the underdog. This guy did it as an underdog in the Netherlands. We're a huge club with lots of history, but we're not those big boys. And that is almost as much of a mentality for Klopp as the press was.
The direction maybe the club is going in terms of Michael Edwards is coming back in, Richard Hughes is going to be there. There's talk of, FSG buying another smaller team elsewhere in Europe where they can maybe develop players, and Slot's had a great record at Feyenoord with young players and developing them. So maybe just a slight change in terms of the recruitment model and the policy that Liverpool have going forward. I'm really intrigued by that point as well. And I think, Van Dijk's been interested in talking about it. And he said, he's one of the better Dutch coaches at the moment. And I think the way of playing and the philosophy he has, that he could be a Liverpool coach. So, I wouldn't discount the fact that Michael Edwards has spoken to some of the senior players there at Liverpool, and they really rate Slot as well, and maybe heard a lot of good things about him in the Netherlands. And like you said, Nick, in terms of Klopp and the hunger and to prove himself, I think let's not count that out as well. He's coming to the Premier League. There's always, can they do it in the Premier League? Why not have experience? But the same questions were said about, Graham Potter before he managed in the Premier League, then De Zerbi at Brighton. I mean, Unai Emery as well. We're looking back at that when he came to Arsenal. That went pretty well, all things considered. So we always have these same questions thrown up, right? Can they do it in the Premier League? I think we have to push that to one side and look at stylistically, personality-wise. He ticks a lot of the boxes. And I can just see him, Andy, when you see someone as a Liverpool manager, you can just picture him at the Klopp end. The Klopp end. It's not renamed the Klopp end, maybe one day. But I could just see that through him. But there is a danger, right? When we look at, post Alex Ferguson, what happened to David Moyes, post Wenger, what happened to Emery, like I said. Is there a concern for Slot here going to Liverpool after Klopp, who's been one of the greatest managers in Premier League history?
Yeah, there's a concern for anyone that takes any job after a legend, someone who has had the amount of success that the guys that you just named had during their tenures, and that you never want to be the guy to follow the guy. You always want to be the guy that followed the guy that followed the guy, and just almost cleanse the palate, if you will, in the minds of fans, and it kind of resets the, I don't know, expectation is the right word, but and to go back to what I was saying earlier, bringing in Slot and being so similar to Klopp, it feels like the expectation will be immediately, well, we should just continue having the same amount of success. We should continue challenging for the title every single season. And everything else that we've heard coming out of Liverpool in terms of the finances and the backroom structure and how they're kind of structuring, sounds like a football group coming together more so than just a football club now, is that it might not be like that. It might take a little bit of a rebuild. It might take a little bit of unearthing some cheaper signings rather than going out and getting those ready-made players like they've been able to do for a number of years now. And so it's just where the expectations are and where reality is, you have to line that up. At a club as big as Liverpool, where it's not as political as, say, Bayern Munich, or Real Madrid, but it is a fairly political club in terms of just how it operates and how it's viewed from the inside and from the outside. And so it's just, those aren't lining up for me quite perfectly with this appointment. But at the end of the day, if they go out there, they get results, and he shows that he can handle that pressure, nothing else really matters.
In the situation, we'll keep you updated on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com as Arne Slot looks like he's nearing towards the move to Liverpool. Still talks about negotiation package with Feyenoord, but the main thing is he wants the job. He's come out and said that publicly. I love that. And now let's see if he is going to be the new Liverpool manager. It's going to be really exciting to see how this goes.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.